Finding a job is tough right now for thousands of Floridians. So when word of a new company coming to a small Bay Area town spread, people had high hopes.
Rural Hardee County gave this company millions of dollars, but as 10 News investigator Mike Deason discovered, a group of powerful politicians without any company and without any product already had their own plans for that money.
Welcome to Hardee County. It's about an hour east of Sarasota, and this rural county is worlds away from the life most of us know. Not only is Hardee one of the smallest counties in the state, it's also one of the poorest, with nearly 29% of the people living below the poverty level.
So, how long have you been looking for a job?
About a year and a half.
Tell me.
And just nothing out there. There's just nothing here.
This woman, we will call Teresa, is so embarrassed about being out of work, she asked us not to show her face. In the time she's been out of work, she's gone to the Hardee County Workforce Office twice a week, hoping to find anyone who will hire a 55-year-old woman.
I don't know what the future holds for me, but, you know, I just keep plugging along one day at a time.
Does it scare you?
Yeah, sure it does. You know, a lot of days I feel like I'm one step away from being under the bridge.
Teresa might have been able to cash in on a $2.6 million economic development grant that the county was handing out, but it wasn't in the cards for her because some powerful people already had their own plan for the money.
I'm not interested in giving an interview.
Meet Tampa State Representative Jamie Grant. His company, LifeSync Technologies, pitched a bold plan to county officials. Give the company $2.6 million, and LifeSync would create a cloud-based medical records firm and bring jobs to Hardee County. Public records indicate Grant had powerful allies and partners, including State Representative Jason Broder from Orlando, State Representative Ben Albritton of Hardee County, and his brother, Hardee County Insurance Agency owner Joe Albritton.
Your facts are off there, Mike. You need to check your facts.
Well, Joe Albritton wasn't involved in.
Joe Albritton has no equity in my company. Has never had any equity in my company.
But we did check the facts, and look what we found in the minutes from the Hardee County agency that handed out the money. Joe Albritton, who was on the board that gave Grant the money, abstains from voting on an issue involving Grant's company because he's a part owner. In addition, Joe Albritton abstained at another meeting, and his disclosure form says both he and his brother, Representative Ben Albritton, could receive special gain from LifeSync.
The allegation that anybody that was involved in the grant process received equity that was related to a legislator or that a legislator gave equity to is just completely offensive.
But critics of the LifeSync deal suggest what is offensive is that it appears the deck was stacked because the head of the county agency that issued the grant is this man, Jim C. C just happens to be the uncle of the Albritton brothers and shares office space with Joe Albritton.
Their company received millions of dollars.
No.
They didn't receive $2.6 million?
They did. The company.
The company.
Not them personally.
No, but they were part of the company.
Not them personally.
But you don't see
Not them personally.
But they were part of that entity.
Not them personally.
But it doesn't stop there. Meet Sue Burge, the chair on the board. Burge's son was also hired by the company.
You don't think it opens you up to someone saying it creates an appearance of impropriety?
I can't help what people's opinions are. I just know that he was qualified for the job.
And Jim C., who approved the grant money, says the same thing about his son, who was also hired by the company.
Or I threw in my 2 cents and said, you need to hire my son or we're not going to give you any money. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I don't, just from appearance.
That's your insinuation.
Well, the insinuation is that it might
That's
look
your insinuation.
But it might look funny that your son and the chairman's son.
And when I've told the other people the truth, they don't want to hear the truth.
But the truth that the legislators involved in the company in Hardee County don't want anyone to hear about is this scathing report from the Auditor General, which said the $2.6 million should never have been given to the lawmakers' company, LifeSync. It cites several reasons. 1, the company wasn't legally qualified to get the money. 2, the company didn't offer proof it was capable of making it all happen. 3, there wasn't a plan in place to see how LifeSync was using the money. And finally, the Auditor General contends the $2.6 million didn't bring any economic benefit to Hardee County.
What about the Auditor General? Was the Auditor General totally off base?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And while the Auditor General's office here in Tallahassee is charged with looking into improprieties like it found in Hardee County, Grant contends that the Auditor General and this audit are completely wrong. And everything he and Hardee County did was completely right.
It's discouraging, it's disheartening, you know, and it's despicable.
And what muddies the picture even more is that the politicians who got the $2.6 million violated their agreement with Hardee County and sold their interest in the grant money and the product they never developed. In return, they got more than 1 million shares of stock from the new company. Meantime, since the Auditor General visited Hardee County, the $2.6 million has created a total of 10 jobs. And 3 have gone to relatives of those involved in handing out the money. Stay tuned. More to come.
Much more to come. Thank you, Mike.
News at 11.
Good evening. I'm Heather Van Ness.
And I'm Reginald Roundtree. Thank you for joining us. Money is tight at the Tampa Housing Authority. The agency says that they're having trouble making ends meet.
But the 10 News investigators found that the THA, whose mission is to help poor families put a roof over their heads, is not having any problems putting their own staff in fancy hotels all across the country. 10 News investigator Mike Deason crunched the numbers and has a story you'll see only on 10.
The Tampa Housing Authority gets $79 million a year to provide for Tampa's most needy citizens, some who are living in less than desirable public housing. But the authority says it's struggling to do more with less.
We're still expected to do the same thing that we've been doing in public housing for the last 10 years with less money. We can't continue to maintain public housing as we see it today based on our funding level.
While the THA is singing the blues over funding cuts, the agency still seems to have plenty of money for travel. From the streets of San Francisco to the French Quarter in New Orleans, from Nashville, the Music City, to the windy city of Chicago, New York, Savannah, Washington, D.C., Charleston, Boston. The investigators analyzed the agency records. In the past 3 years, the Tampa Housing Authority has spent more than $500,000 on travel and training and is budgeted to spend $234,000 this year alone. And despite budget cuts, the THA still increased next year's travel budget to $306,000. That's up more than 30%. The investigators also reviewed other agencies within the same 3-year time period. While the Tampa Housing Authority was spending almost $504,000, we discovered it was 64% more on travel and training than the Miami-Dade Housing Authority. Miami-Dade spent $307,000 in the same time period, while operating on a budget almost 5 times larger.
Things are changing.
Records reveal Tampa Housing CEO Jerome Ryans has spent more than $28,000 in the past 3 years traveling to conferences.
And you've spent the past 3 years with more than several hundred. Well, I would like to know from you about the hundreds of thousands of dollars you allowed.
We've seen this before. Ryans ran from us earlier this year when we questioned him about his salary.
I don't apologize for my salary to anybody, and I'm through with it.
We also wanted to ask Ryans why taxpayers picked up the bill for valet parking for him in Orlando, or Best of Boston tours for board members and staff, or why several staffers stayed at expensive hotels, in some cases for up to $400 a night.
Dr. Harvey, you're the chairman of the board. The board itself has spent almost $100,000 in taxpayer money going to San Francisco, to Boston, to New Orleans. Is that appropriate when the Housing Authority...
I don't have a comment. Thank you.
And so the taxpayers don't have a right to know about this?
They can come to this office anytime they want to.
But the king of travel is the number 2 man in the agency, Leroy Moore. Moore has spent more than $60,000 of public money traveling to conferences in the past 3 years.
Mr. Moore, which city did you enjoy the most on the taxpayers' dime? San Francisco, Boston, New Orleans, Chicago, New York?
Mike Deason, you've received all of our reports for the last 5 years. It shows that this housing authority spent between $160,000 and $180,000 a year on travel and training. You're really being obnoxious. I don't know why your station allows you to continue to put out this junk, but it's really running thin.
But what is really running thin is the budget at the Tampa Housing Authority, which readily admits because of cuts, it may not be able to provide the same degree of services for its residents, some of whom live in these rundown, unair-conditioned apartments, while at the same time, some board and staff members booked rooms at golf and beach resorts so they could attend conferences on the taxpayer dime.
You spent $60,000.
Do you want to continue to be obnoxious?
Will you answer the question?
I've answered your question.
But there are more questions to be answered. U.S. Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa says he is shocked by what he calls excessive travel by public housing authorities across the United States. Now the senator is calling for an investigation into the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which provides the majority of funding for the Tampa Housing Authority. And you can bet that the 10 News investigators will stay on top of this and let you know what happens.
It was 2004 when Hurricane Charlie charged across Florida. You may remember that. Obviously, everybody does. After the storm, some local leaders saw opportunity filing big damage claims.
Yeah, but there's a big question. What happened to all that insurance money? And you might not like what we found. Here's 10 News investigator Mike Deason with a story you will see only on 10.
It's disaster.
When Hurricane Charlie unleashed its fury on Florida in 2004, it left a trail of damage from businesses to homes.
We lost everything.
After the storm, cities and counties lined up with insurance claims, including Hardee County. Some county officials claimed the Hardee County Civic Center in Wauchula was one of its buildings that had taken a beating in the storm. But Hardee County Commissioner Grady Johnson doesn't buy it.
What kind of damage was here?
It appears to me very little.
Johnson, a retired deputy sheriff, says the county filed a huge claim on the Civic Center to fix up the alleged storm damage. He wants to know where all that money went.
It appears to me that there's well over $1 million been paid out on this.
On this building?
On this building.
Look at a picture of the Civic Center the day after Charlie hit. It doesn't look much different from today. Even the water damage on the inside seems minimal, especially when you consider it has a terrazzo floor. But the bill for emergency drying was $576,000.
When I first seen that, it just took my breath away. $500,000 to pump water or remove water from a concrete building, which you have seen, terrazzo floors.
And it's not just the Civic Center. Johnson is also upset about the figures he's seen for the county-owned Rest Haven nursing home.
There's over $1 million was supposed to have been spent here, and the figures that I've seen after this hurricane.
Do you believe that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Wendell Cotton is on the board of directors of Rest Haven. He says the building on the outside and inside is 40 years old and looks it. And it doesn't look like hundreds of thousands were spent on the building just 9 years ago.
When you hear that they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars out here, what do you think?
I think it's a joke. Where's this money at? What happened to it? Because it certainly didn't go in this building, and it did not go in that building over there.
9 years after Charlie, FEMA still has not closed the file. Back then, the agency discovered conflicts on damage description, scope of work, and cost estimates. So we wanted to get some answers. Doug Knight was the county point person for repairs.
But people are asking questions about how the money was spent in Hurricane Charlie.
Pull the file.
Well, I have pulled the file.
Mike.
I have pulled the public records.
Mike, thank you. Have a good day.
Hey, you have a good one too, Doug.
Knight refused to answer our questions, but County Manager Lex Albritton was Knight's boss after the storm. Albritton claims he's convinced the millions of dollars of repairs were all done.
Everything. It's all as documented as it can be documented. I can't make you believe it.
But through these scathing letters and emails obtained by the 10 News investigators, as well as comments at public meetings, then Hardee County Clerk of Court Hugh Bradley charged that Albritton and his hired gun, Doug Knight, lied about whether the people who did the repairs were actually approved to do it. Broke the law when they authorized the payout of insurance money without going through the clerk of court's office, and may have paid some vendors twice for the same work. The battle between the clerk, who is now retired, and County Manager Albritton over the way the money was spent came to a head at this county meeting 1 year ago.
The people really, truly want integrity, and they want honesty, and they want to know that there are not a few in position that are trying to, for whatever reason, divert $1 million.
The belief that that money is going to some shell company that then divided it and turned it back to the employee myself is pure bull.
Well, it's true it's not accounted for in his accounting records. That doesn't mean it's not accounted for.
But Commissioner Johnson, the retired deputy, isn't satisfied. He wants the U.S. Attorney to open a federal investigation into where the money went. Money that could have helped people who really suffered from the storm.
The evidence is so overwhelming that there is something seriously wrong involving a lot of money.
Meantime, while Doug Knight, who led the insurance efforts for the county during Charlie, wouldn't answer our questions on camera, he did email me a statement that attacked former clerk of court Hugh Bradley. Knight says he doesn't believe Bradley has the competency to handle money appropriations for Charlie or grasp the claim loss and the documentation. Bradley, who is retired and traveling out of state, couldn't be reached, but it's worth noting that he spent 15 years as the chief financial officer of Hardee County, and he is the only one that state law says should be handling the money and the payouts, not the county manager nor his hired gun, Doug Knight. We'll stay on top of it. More to come.